Hello, everyone. Welcome to Vision CA Career Talks. I'm extremely honored to introduce Aruna Kumaraswamy. She's a qualified chartered accountant with 20 years of experience. She's a partner in the Audit and Assurance department in one of the Big Fours, having led large teams on complex engagements across various sectors, including large IPOs and cross-border engagements. In alignment with her passion to develop and nurture talent, she also oversees a part of the talent function in her existing role and has been a part of several leadership programs. She is an advocate for women empowerment and has been associated with various initiatives like Herky and Jobs for Her. She also supports the Bulletin Box, an online original content platform, with their digital marketing and content strategy. Apart from work, she loves reading books, has a passion for travel, and actively pursues dance fitness routines like Zumba and yoga. It's a privilege to have you with us here, ma'am. Thank you so much for taking time out to share your experience with us today.
Yeah, hi, Varshini. Thank you so much for having me on board. It's my pleasure to be talking to you and, of course, the rest of your group today. Thank you.
Yes, ma'am. So I'm sure that all of the CA aspirants and young CAs have a lot to learn from you. So can you tell us a little bit about your background and your primitive years?
Sure. Across my childhood, of course, I've lived in various cities, and that's very important. That's been a very important contributor to the individual that I am today. I did my education, majority of my education in Delhi, and then I spent a lot of years in Chennai, including my high school as well as a significant part of my career as a chartered accountant before moving on into Mumbai, which is where I'm sitting today. So initially, of course, even as a young school-going kid, I was always enamored by the whole world of finance and economics. I mean, of course, at that point in time, I think there weren't too many options as we have today. At least while things were still opening up, I think there were three main careers. People were either doctors, engineers, or chartered accountants, and that was at least the well-known careers that we had at that point in time. And of course, I wasn't that keen on being a doctor engineer, no specific reason, but because of my passion for finance and general liking for that subject, I chose commerce, and eventually CA was something that I was interested in. And so the journey started with me doing the CA foundation and thereon with my articleship experience.
Yes, ma'am. And even today, the charm of chartered accountancy still continues in terms of the respect that it garners in society, as well as, the opportunities that are there. It's not restricted to a particular field, but rather opens up a plethora of options for all the commerce students who take up this as a profession. So
yeah, that's very true. Yeah.
Yeah. So now that, almost 20 years back, you joined a Big Four as an article. And I have also been a Big Four article. So I can understand, the amount of workload, the pressure that, comes to us at a very young age when, we're not exposed to the corporate world. So can you share with us how, how your article experience was and, how it has shaped you to become the person that you are today?
Yeah, sure. I think for any chartered accountant, I think the articleship experience is a very important experience. And that's why I think all the students that I meet, I always tell them to take their articleship experience very seriously, irrespective of whichever firm that you're doing it with. Because those are the formative years, and it's very important for a foundation to be strong. So luckily for me, because I think it was one of my best decisions to pursue articleship in a Big Four. Of course, there were a lot of people who came and told me, you will not have time to study, you may not have, because of the workload, you may not be able to clear CA. Of course, there were a lot of such apprehensions, but I still took the chance and I appeared for interviews. In fact, at that point in time, there were not too many Big Fours who offered articleship experience for non-graduates. Most of them preferred graduates at that point in time. And since I had come through the non-graduate route, there were not too many options, but luckily I did get into one of them. And I think that's, as I just mentioned, it was maybe one of the best choices in life that I've made till date. I mean, of course, as a young professional, when you enter into the corporate world, one, you get enamored by it because you don't have that experience, you don't have that exposure, such large clients, such large corporate offices. I think it kind of enamors you the day you walk in, and that's what it did to me also. Obviously, I knew that the day I stepped in to the office, I knew that I wanted to make it big in that office. I think that was very clear. So it's very important to have that goal in life. I think that's what I want to state. Right from the start, it's very important to know where you want to get. So you may want to choose different paths to get where you want to get. And the articleship experience as such, the Big Four, because we had a lot of practical experience, and I still remember telling stories about how a lot of the content in these subjects, I was very able to easily relate back to what we were doing. Something very similar to even accounting for molds in a factory, their treatment in excess duty in that age, and other various aspects. Even there are a lot of questions in the exams that I used to relate back to my practical experience and include that in my responses. So, and not only that, I think when you have that exposure of meeting larger clients, and also kind of taking up those stringent timelines and knowing that you will have limited time, but you still need to study within the limited time, it brings in a lot of discipline in you as an individual and as a professional. And I think that sets the foundation for a long-term career, where it's very important to have proper discipline and self-confidence that you need to develop to be able to have a long-term career.
Yes, ma'am, I completely agree with you. And I think what I would like to also point out here is, the fact of people saying that joining a Big Four, you might not get, time, is something I think has stayed constant over 20 years. So I heard it when I joined as a Big Four article, and 20 years back, I'd heard the same thing. So I think that's one thing that's remained the same across periods. And as you rightly said, the discipline and the exposure that we get at a very young age actually shapes us to be the people that we are. So now moving on to the million-dollar question that every CA aspirant after clearing the exam faces. What is it that you choose as a career path? There are so many options available, people bombarding you with their suggestions, whether wanted or unwanted, but it creates a lot of confusion. So what was it that made you decide that audit is your career path? And at the same time, now that you've become an audit partner, how has your experience been over 20 years of associating yourself with a Big Four?
Yeah, so yes, I agree. There are a lot of options, and today, and of course, the options are increasing every day and age with the with the entire digitalization and the digital finance, and a lot of options that are arising today. And for me, the choice, as a young CA, even I had those questions in terms of whether to go to industry or, join a mutual fund or, or be here. But I think more or less, because of the kind of work that I was already doing and the amount of exposure that I had at that point in time, it was for me a natural choice to continue. Of course, I always wanted to be in a, in a role where your degree or your whatever you have read is the core of it. And as an auditor, you are in touch with your technical subjects, what you have read, you implement actually what you read, right? And I wanted to do that instead of actually deviating from what I had started off with. And also in audit, I wouldn't want to call it akin to consulting, but it is again client facing. You meet a lot of new people, you go to new locations, you tend to travel a lot. And I think that all of that makes a person very mature, because new experiences, how to deal with different clients, different personalities, how to manage deadlines. I think all of that adds to yourself as a whole, your overall personality, and makes you mature. While I'm not saying that in an industry you don't get that kind of exposure, obviously the exposure is very different and can be, there are various facets of it. But as an audit, staying core to what you're doing, that's your technical literature, technical skills. At the same time, be client focused, understanding clients' issues, providing solutions to it. And at the same time, an auditor, as you rightly pointed out at the beginning, it's considered as a position of respect, right? Because you are providing a lot of confidence to investors, to the larger public, you basically, it's an assurance function, right? It's you kind of giving assurance to people, and that is something that has always excited me. And it's also, that's why it's considered to be one of very important roles that a CA can play. Keeping all this in mind, I think at that point in time, and especially because I was really loving what I was doing as part of my articleship experience, it just became a natural path for me to take to evolve as an auditor. And I think over the last 20 years, I've seen audit profession itself changing, right? I mean, when I started off, I still remember there were maybe few laptops, or not even laptops, there were few computers in the whole office. And most of us used to work with our work papers used to be, on sheets, and we used to audit with hard copy documents. From there, we slowly moved on to, taking ledgers from new IT systems. SAP was implemented by several companies. So this entire transition has been very gradual, but at the same time at a very good pace. So now starting from where we did in terms of very traditional forms of accounting and auditing, to today where we are looking at a very digitized form of accounting for industries and auditing for us, as well as the constant change in literature. There are so many complex topics. There's so many guidances that the institute has been issuing. I think it keeps you on your toes. And once again, I think that's, and also with so many capital market transactions, there's so much happening in the field of finance, stock exchange, etc. today, that you always need to keep reading and updating yourself. And all of that has helped me evolve. So over the years, it's never remained the same. As an auditor, life was never the same. It kept evolving, and because we had to keep up with what was changing in the profession. And therefore, when I look back and say, you said 20 years, I really look back, has it really been 20 years? But it has been, but it's never seemed like that.
Yes, ma'am. And I think more than anything, audit puts together, it's like putting pieces of a puzzle together, because you have so much of, so many things that you have to consider when you do an audit, starting from corporate law or, accounting reporting that happens, while at the same time also keeping an eye on the government initiatives, the government, what comes up in the budget, the taxes. And so it's kind of putting all the puzzles together, so you can never ever get bored of it, because you always have something new to look forward to, new to identify, and new to comprehend as a whole. Looking at the entire picture as audit. So going forward, when I joined as an article intern, I remember walking, across the cabins of the partners and seeing, them on calls with reviews happening and all of that. So I've always been fascinated, to see that how does a day go in the life of a partner. For me as an article intern, I think handling one engagement or maximum 2-3 engagements at a time used to be used to be mind-boggling, because I used to never know what to do when, and the timelines and all of that. And being a partner, I think there's so much of engagement, there's so many things that are going on at the same time. So how does a day look in the life of a partner, and how do you go about it, starting from where it ends and where it starts?
Okay. Yeah, that's an interesting question. I think every day is different, and it is different for every person and individual, I guess. Of course, what you said in terms of being able to handle various things at the same point in time, it comes with experience, and which is why you take a long while to become a partner. So it just comes with that experience. A typical day for me would, for me, actually, there's no typical day. Every day is different. And I think that's the dynamism which the profession brings in. But mostly it will revolve around, of course, the discussions with clients, because being in regular touch with your clients and interacting with them, not just on audit issues, but also generally in terms of what's happening on the business, that's a very integral part. So doing that, and also because we are able to manage so many engagements because we have great teams supporting us. So engaging with our teams, reviewing with them, and I think it's a wonderful experience reviewing with the entire team. We all do work over a period of a couple of weeks, and then we put them all together and give it a proper shape in terms of an audit report. So the entire journey, I think when you put it all together, I think that's very interesting. Of course, a lot of it also goes into, there are deadlines, there are a lot of firefighting that happens at times. So I think some of closing some fires at a horizon, which you not expected, I think that's always been a part. And notwithstanding that, I think there are a lot of learning programs and their technical learning sessions, or even other soft skill learnings, which also form an integral part of a professional's life. So that is also a part of it. So it's a mix, and obviously the fact that it's whether it happens at your office or the client's office, there's always a community which keeps you on your toes once again. So that's how a typical day would look like, I would say.
Yeah. And ma'am, so at the end of a particular day, what is it that makes you feel that you have had a satisfied day? You know, whatever you wanted to do has been achieved. So when do you get that satisfaction at the end of a day or at the end of a year, you know, once in your work life?
I think when do I get satisfied? I think when the whole satisfaction of having to complete something or to try something new. I think there are two things. One, whenever you try something new or you are stuck with a problem and you innovate and you resolve it, I think that's when you you get the kick out of it and you kind of say, okay, I've achieved something today. I think you make the day better for somebody else, whether it's for your client who's come to you with a problem and you make their day better by working with them to find a solution, or at the same time with your teams, making their lives better. I think either of these is what would make me feel my day was good. I mean, a lot of to-dos still get left at the end of each day, and I think all of us face it. So it's not really about how much work you complete, but it's what's the nature of the work. Even if you're very busy, I think if you have achieved something new in that day, I think that's what would make you satisfied.
Yes, ma'am, absolutely. I think that goes common across different professions. You know, the fact that we have made a difference at the end of the day, I think that is what brings the most satisfaction, as you rightly pointed out. Another thing that just brings me up here is, so you've had a transition where you've gone from being managed by people to managing people, right? So how has that transition been? Because I think at one point it would have been, you know, a big step forward where, you know, you have people under you, you have to delegate work, you need to ensure that no team issues arise, and, you know, all of that. So how have you been able to do that transition?
See, it's a very important managerial skills as a part of the leadership trait, which you slowly develop as you move across the ladders. But what I specifically did was, of course, when I was being managed, as you put it, I think right from the start, one thing that I always maintained is I've taken up that role of, even if I was being managed, I took the responsibility for whatever I was doing. Right, and even if that meant a very junior resource had to be trained, had to be so I think that quality kind of was being developed right from the start. That's what I was working on. Whether I won't say I was consciously working on it, but it just came with the leadership role that you trade that people normally have. Apart from that, I think what I have always kept in mind is, of course, even I have not had all good experiences when I was managed by people. So I've taken a conscious effort that when I manage people, I try and make sure that I don't repeat some of the things, and would be in terms of the flexibility that you offer, or understanding the other person's position, or even deciding when to delegate, whether how much to keep with yourself, how do you nurture people, how do you give them new experiences. I think all of those aspects, what I expected when I was being managed, I consciously try and inculcate that when I manage people. I think that's what I try and do. And more importantly, I still remember when I became a manager, one of my senior managers at partner at that point of time had advised that once you become a manager, it's very important as to how you behave. And when I say behave, not just behavior, but how you conduct yourself, right? You can't walk in late every day and expect your teams to come early. You will have to set the path, and you have to walk the talk that you're doing. And that puts a lot of responsibility on us. Because and it's not wrong for leaders to err. I think a lot of us put leaders in such a pivotal position that you cannot make a mistake. It's not like that. Obviously, everybody is a human being. But it's more or less important that you walk the talk. So you have to do things right. And obviously, the teams will follow when they know that what you're doing may be tough at times, but it's maybe the right thing to do. So to be governed by the values, and if your entire team is governed by a similar set of values, I've seen that the entire managing becomes not a task, but it just evolves over a period of time because you're working together as a team. And that's what I think, a cohesive team is what I've always tried to develop. And that's always helped me in my profession. It's helped me grow because without a team, you really can't grow. It's helped me grow, and at the same time, it's made a difference to other people.
Yes, ma'am. And I think that was one thing that really inspired me about you. So I've seen you, address a couple of talks where you focused on this again and again, where, you need to take everybody together as a team. You can't do anything individually, but rather take the team together. So it was really nice of you to share how you have gone about the transition. So now the next being, you've had your professional life, you've had your personal life. As we enter new stages of our life, a lot of personal struggles, personal responsibilities also come on. So how have you been able to maintain the balance between personal life and professional life? Probably a question that a lot of people have, especially for people in the top managerial positions, on how they manage to do it all.
Yeah. So first and foremost, I don't try and manage to do all. I think I don't be that tough on myself, and I'm being very frank. There are things that I miss at times. I think things when I'm busy at office, there's some things at home that maybe are not the way that they are expected to be. And at the same time, there may be times when you are personally down with some things there. I do take some liberties at workplace as well. So I think work and personal life needs to coexist. When I say coexist, you should be able to set it apart in your mind rather than just the time. All right. A lot of times, and I've said this earlier also in a few of my discussions, is you can still be at work and keep thinking about things that go on at home, or if there are issues at home, or if you have left some pending task left. Or you can still go back home at 6:37, but still keep thinking about office and that pending email and the pending work assignment or whatever, right? So if you really want to achieve that balance, I think that balance needs to be achieved in your mind. So when you're focusing at work, it's very important to just focus on your work and have the discipline to get that done. And because, yes, there are priorities back at home, I am very, I am very conscious about my time at work also. With every hour that I spend, not that I don't take breaks, I of course take a lot of required breaks, but I make sure that whatever time that I spend at work, I get an effective and productive output out of it. I think that's what I do, so that I take very little less work back home. And when I'm at home, I try and not, for example, my phone is off notifications, right? So I decide when I open my email, I don't have emails coming at 4 a.m. in the morning, 5 a.m. in the morning, waking me up. So I decide to see when I have to look at my emails. Of course, if there are deadlines, if there's something very pressurizing, you automatically have the responsibility to do it. But I think there are smaller aspects like this that you need to do to be able to maintain that balance. If there is, and today I think, and it's very good that today's youngsters as well as the professions, everybody has acknowledged that the personal life is equally important. Because you cannot exist with just work, because at the end of it, work is a very important part of your life, but it's just not life. So therefore you need to take time out for personal things. You need to spend that weekend with the family or do things. There are a lot of weekends which may be consumed by work, but again, to have that clear decision to say, is it really that critical to be done today? I think that's the question we need to ask ourselves. And another advice that I have got from my seniors is that work always fills the time that you have, right? If you have 5 hours and you just have one work to do, you'll do it for 5 hours. At the same time, imagine you have a meeting in the next 1 hour, if the same document gets done in 1 hour, right? And maybe with 90% quality, but it still gets done. So I think we always need to work with a defined work timings in mind. So we have to, if you have to finish something in 6 hours, we need to finish that in 6 hours, rather than letting it extend to 9, 10 hours, saying, yeah, I will continue to work and then extend your time. I think that one aspect I've always followed, and that's somehow not just today in a leadership position, but even in early part of my career. And that's again something that I would like to emphasize. Things don't change overnight, especially since you said, women professionals, when you start having other responsibilities, you can't change yourself overnight. You can't become efficient and productive right the next day, right? So it needs to be a part of your work life right from the start. Even for me, I was very clear, even when I didn't have other responsibilities at home, I was very clear that when work is over, I go back home, I do other things, right? But not just be at office. So that discipline right from the start is very important, because time management cannot be learned and done overnight. So you need to practice it right from the beginning. And at the same time, we do not be ashamed of taking the time out for personal things or taking time out of personal for office related matters, because both of them are important and need to coexist.
Yes, ma'am. And I think, a good way to maybe look at it for CA aspirants would be, when we have 1.5 days before the exam, we ensure that we complete the entire syllabus. Whereas if we have a month, I'm pretty sure none of us would still be able to do it in a month. So
Yeah.
it, I think, comes down to keeping realistic, reasonable deadlines and then ensuring that you push yourself to meet it. And then you have time for yourself and for your family as well.
Yeah.
Ma'am,
managing time is most critical, I guess.
Yeah, and as you rightly pointed out, when you do work or when you're on your personal life, you don't think about the other. So how do you manage to stay focused when you do your work? To not think about anything else, to just know that you need to just finish your work and then move on to something else.
So I think that's got to do with what you call mindfulness, right? I mean, in terms of being able to control your mind to think about that task on hand. Our mind generally tends to be able to do everything else apart from the task on hand, and that's a characteristic trait of a human mind. So I think practicing mindfulness has actually helped me quite a lot when we do that. And I think when I say when I'm at work, I don't think about home. It's obviously not that I shouldn't think about home, but it's about the discipline, as I once again said, to get things done that you have on hand and move on. I think with that principle, if you focus on it, and then, as I said, with mindfulness, that's how I tend to manage it.
Right. So you've shared a lot about your professional life in terms of how you manage your work, your professional personal life balance, and all of that. So now moving on to something else that you're really passionate about in terms of women empowerment. So things have changed a lot for women in terms of how they're included, the responsibilities they're given over the last 20 years. So what would you share as your experience in terms of being a woman? Has it been different for you at your workplace or elsewhere? And how have you overcome any difficult situations where, you've been not given the required amount of respect being a woman?
So yes, I think once again, just like our audit profession has evolved, the overall woman empowerment, if you may want to call it that way, I think that's also evolved over years. Right? So we're definitely not where we were 20 years back. At least today we discuss there is a conscious action taken to bring more women to workforce. A lot of organizations are actually working on it, which was not the case 20 years back. So that way, I think, I mean, personally, I've been lucky. I've not had too many such instances where people have not respected. But generally, what I see is, I mean, of course, women are put to a lot more judgment. And what I would say is that what is required for women to come up is one, if there is a woman in your team, do not hesitate to give her a challenging opportunity, right? Do not decide for her whether she needs to take it up or not, whether she should travel to that location or not, whether she should go to that far-flung factory or location or not. I think don't take those decisions for them, while you may be taking those decisions in their best interest. But it's important to try and understand what do they want to do and encourage them to take up more challenging roles. I think that is what is more important. A lot of times, and even today, a lot of people focus on giving flexibility to women, right? Which is important. And I'm a strong believer that flexibility is important, not just for women, because if you're giving it to only a small portion of your workforce, because women are still a very small portion of the overall workforce. So if flexibility is given just to one small portion of the workforce, then it's never going to work, because it has to be for the workforce at large, for everybody to coexist. So instead of instead of focusing just on flexibility, I think people should focus on giving the right opportunities, challenges, so that you prepare women for a long-run career. Because once they're more prepared, once they know how to handle situations, that's what makes them more ready and confident to be able to manage both their personal and professional aspirations together. I think that confidence that, yes, I can do it, I can manage it, I've done it before, and therefore I will be able to do it. I think that confidence is very important. And I would strongly urge that if you want to have more women in the workforce, I think that's what all managers and other leaders should do. Give them the right opportunities. And of course, for women, I would say, while I do agree that it's not an equal world anymore, I think even today it's not an equal world, I must say. But at the same time, it also depends on how much you want to take up. And I've always told my team members extra that go and seek for opportunities, go and ask for opportunities. Do not restrict yourself, right? I am where I am today because my bosses did not restrict me, gave me the opportunities. My family did not restrict me. Of course, I had, we had disciplines around what time you need to get back home, and even if you're an outstation audit, when you need to come back to the hotel room. I had all those laid out rules. But I think in spite of all of that, they never restricted me in terms of what I wanted to do in terms of career. I think that, and I also always push the envelope, right? Even if somebody said, no, how can you do it? I said, no, I'll still manage to do it. And sometimes taken the risk, gone ahead, maybe failed a lot of times, but still, kind of succeeded in some of those. And that's how the entire journey was made. So one, do not hesitate to give opportunities to women in your team. At the same time, for women, I would really urge you to don't restrict yourself, don't build that boundary wall around yourself. Just go ahead, seek new opportunities. If it means traveling abroad, do that. Newer countries, take those risks, go and take those opportunities. And that will help you manage, become a more confident person and manage your personal and professional life better.
Right, ma'am. Absolutely. I think it comes down to who we are at the end of the day and how we look at the opportunities, where at situations as opportunities or whether, they put us down. There are some people who take it up as challenges and then focus on achieving it, whereas there are some who find out faults in that and then push themselves down, thereby not taking up challenging situations. So any challenging or any difficult situations where you had to be a little tactical about how you had to proceed, being a woman in workplace or elsewhere?
I wouldn't say tactical. I mean, I've seen a corporate life, there are a lot of such situations. I think every day you have to be tactful. I think you have to be diplomatic, you have to be tactful, and I think it's a part of life. You can't, I don't believe that you just have to be, you have to say what you have in your mind and just walk away, because I don't think that meets the purpose. Diplomacy is a very important trait. It simply, it goes with my philosophy or belief that you have to take people together. I mean, you don't have to get consensus all the time. Because as a leader, you can't get consensus all the time. But at least you know that you have tried to take people together and at the same time taken the right decisions. So I would say tactful, but I think sometimes you will need to, like say, large meetings or large gatherings, how do you make your presence felt? And I think that's something that people lose out a lot of times. There are few people who do that very well in terms of if you are in a large training or a large conference. You can choose to be a silent spectator, be the last person in the row, and or not ask questions, be shy of asking questions for the fear of being ridiculed. I think instead of doing all of that, sitting on the table, asking the right questions, proving your mettle, I think that is very, very important. All said and done, people will respect you for the knowledge that you have. And that is where I always try to focus to say, okay, irrespective of the fact that a lot of people doubt you on your capabilities, whether you can do something more challenging. I think instead of spending time trying to justify whatever they are saying, let your actions speak. So I would just encourage everyone that if you have to be tactful, just make sure that your actions speak for yourself. I think that's more important. And also keep in mind that, having a support group for yourself, be it office or at work or at home, I think that's both of those are equally important. So having a good team who supports you, who will stand with you irrespective of whatever it is, I think that is very, very important. So focus on building that. I think these are two things that I would lay on the table. There will still be a lot of people who will doubt your capabilities, but instead of spending your efforts on that, just focus on improvising yourself.
Right, ma'am. So I think it has been a very, very insightful session. And I think I would like to end by asking a question that I think a lot of people would have, which is how do you keep yourself updated? So being an auditor, you need to know everything that's happening in terms of, government issues, in terms of, your taxes, your budgets, new, the Ind ASs that came up that, had a big spur where a lot of people didn't actually know what they meant, but you have to draw conclusions. So how do you keep yourself updated on the various issues that happen, and in terms of technical topics as well as otherwise?
Yeah. So I think the two things. One, yes, of course, the technical topics, the India's Companies Act, like all of these changes, you will have to take time out for the same. I think time is always a constraint for everyone. It's never sufficient. 24 hours are never sufficient. But I think, and what I have always done, like, even as a young professional, is even during lunch times, etc., whenever I used to have 10-15 minutes, I used to read up something. And since we're talking to young CA aspirants, that is something that I would like to say. That even, take the 10 minutes out during your lunchtime, and which you would otherwise spend chatting with your friends, to read something new, because it may not be relevant at that point in time, but that is something that will help you later on, but whenever you face that situation. And even as a professional today, I think it's very important to take that half an hour, 1 hour out every week to at least know what is happening, what are the new changes that have come in. You may not be able to read every change and be fully well versed with it, but at least you know the change happened, so that you can go and refer to it once you have a need for it. But more importantly, I think it's just not technical aspects. I see a lot of people today just being focused on studies and technical aspects, but we lose the broader vision, right? We don't have too many people reading newspapers today, business magazines, getting to know what's happening around the world, even be it in terms of politics or even other aspects. I think it's very important to be more broad-based in that sense. You have to technically be sound. At the same time, be also aware of what's happening. Because as an auditor, it's just not financial numbers. It's just not India's. It's also a sense of what's happening in the industry, what's happening in that sector. How is the how are the new changes affecting anybody else? Is there an issue with another client or other company that's there in the papers that you need to be aware of? I think this overall knowledge is very, very critical, which we as young students may tend to miss out because of constraint of time. I would strongly emphasize that you should make that a part of your regular routine.
Yes, ma'am. Very rightly said. I think a lot of people today focus only on studies and forget the larger picture. Whereas we need to focus on a holistic development where we not only focus on studies, but also other aspects in terms of what's happening around us. So at least if someone brings up a topic, we need to know that, there is something like that existing, rather than, have a puzzled face where you're just like, oh, is there something like that? So very rightly said, ma'am. And I felt that you would be able to address the question best, being a partner, having a busy life. And in addition to that, taking out time to do all of this, I think is very, very important, as you rightly pointed out. So thank you so much, ma'am, for joining with us today, for taking out time out of your busy schedule to share your experience. It was a really insightful session, and I think I myself have a lot to take back home, and more so because I saw the other side of how a partner's life actually looks like. Apart from having reviews and actually signing the audit report, I think there's a lot more that actually goes behind. And thank you so much for providing us with that side of your experience with us.
Thank you, Varshini, and it's been a pleasure talking to you today. And I would always be happy to do that. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you so much, ma'am. Thank you.
Thank you. Bye-bye.